Right, guys, how's it going? I'm going to go over a tier list for the Swarm champions in League of Legends. Now, I've seen a lot of guides, I've seen a lot of people going over their tier list as well, but when I do see them, they've never beat the game on Extreme. So I'm here to break down from my personal experience, especially beating the game on Extreme as well and putting a lot of hours into it with each individual champion to see which champion is broken and which champion just sucks. So to start off, we're going to go with Aurora. Aurora's kit is good if you're a new player. If you don't know how to position yourself well, all of her abilities help you get out of a sticky situation. So with her E, uh, the reason why I'm putting her at the worst champion in D tier is because her E, yes, you can get out of a sticky situation, which is great. But if you want to damage them, you have to go into the swarm. Now, if you're playing on story mode or hard, it's not that bad. But if you're playing on extreme and you go into a swarm and you go off cooldown, but there's another swarm that spawned behind them, you're dead. You're in a worse situation than you were in. And so it's not great, right? And usually you want to get further away from the mobs when you're a ranged champion, right? So going into them to damage them just doesn't make sense. It's more like a get out of jail free card. Her ult also isn't that great in my opinion. You just bounce around and do very minimal damage. It doesn't really do that much in my opinion. It's not that great. It's very utility focused. And her damage sucks. It's not great. It's terrible. You can build her full damage and she still will not perform well in my opinion. So D tier for sure. Briar. I'm a little biased. And I'm biased because I beat the game on story mode, on hard mode, and on extreme with Briar first. So I'm putting her in S tier. The reason why I'm putting her in her S tier is because once you level up area size and ability haste, she's extremely good. Whether you build her damage or tanky, she's all around amazing. I build her tanky when I get the right items for her, even on solo extreme. And sometimes I build her damage, and it still works out. So she does a lot of damage if you build damage. She tanks really well and she does still do a good amount of damage if you build her tanky. So I think she's all around the perfect champion for Swarm, depending on what items you get, right? You basically have two paths that you can take, which is great. You can go damage or tank, right? So, because most of the time, your RNG sucks and you don't really get what the items that you want. So sometimes I have to switch from a damage build to a tank build. But it's great because I'll be able to evolve all of my weapons. So her E is great. It does a lot of damage when you do damage, and even if you go tank, it still does a good amount of tank. I use it for two reasons. One, to kill elite bosses. If I need that extra damage, usually I do it just to kill the elite really quickly. But a lot of people don't know this, but you can cancel her E whenever you want. So the way I do it, when I play on extreme, it's very important to heal all the time so you don't get one shot. What I do is I press E and then immediately press E again. What that does is that heals me. So once you level up ability haste, which you're naturally going to want on Briar anyway, your E is on cooldown for 3 seconds when it's maxed. So basically you have a perma heal and perma damage ability, which is great. So I think that's good. Her ult is really good. I use it when I'm very low and I need to heal right up. It's like her get out of jail free card. It's really good. I also use it to get around the map in case a trial spawns or a Yumi quest spawns. I will say that if you get the cross country augment, it works with her ult as well. So really, really good. Illaoi. Illaoi I'm going to put in C tier. She's one of those champions where you kind of want to be around her tentacles, and I don't like how that plays, in my opinion. If you like the playstyle of just kind of standing in one spot and doing little small circles, then that's fine. But most of the time, if you're running around the map, your tentacles spawn too far away from the mobs when you're running, and they don't do enough damage. Her E is pretty good, right? Knocking the enemies up. It's basically a stun, right? It's pretty good. It does a good amount of AoE damage as well to smaller mobs. Her ult, honestly, her ult is very, very underwhelming to me. It doesn't really do enough damage. I don't like her ult. The only time when I like her ult is when you're doing a trial and you have to stay in the circle. I think that's when her ult really shines. So I'm gonna put her in C tier. She's not that great, but she's definitely better than Briar. Jinx. Jinx, in my opinion, does the most damage in the game. The most damage. So that's why I'm putting her in S tier. She does the most damage in the game. The problem is she's very squishy. What you need to do is make sure you have built Ice Blast armor. If you built Ice Blast armor on her, she is definitely an S tier champion. Insanely good, melts elites, melts the end game bosses quickly. She's really, really good. The other reason why I'm putting her in S tier is because if you want to farm for gold, she gets around the map very, very quickly as well. So she's overall just really good. Her E, I kind of use it just to kill out mobs, big mobs. And her ult, I kind of just use it to take down elites. So she's great. And also, if you get the cross-country augment with her, ooh, her damage is amazing. Let's see, Leona. Leona, I'm going to put in A tier. She's a great tank, right? Normally, you don't want to build damage on Leona because of her passive. But the only reason I'm putting her in A tier is because I think her E is on too long of a cooldown. Her shield is on way too long of a cooldown, in my opinion, when you can just play Briar, right? Essentially, it's kind of the same thing, except you heal over a shield. So why would I wait 3 times as long when I could just play Briar for that heal? Her ult is good. Just good utility, right? Doesn't do that much damage, but it's great utility. Riven. Riven, I'm putting in S tier. Riven is great for 2 reasons. The first reason is you can farm for gold very easily with her. She's the best champion to farm gold for, in my opinion. She gets around the map very fast because she scales with movement speed. You naturally build movement speed items as well, and she gets movement speed from her passive. She's all around just great. Her early game sucks. Probably one of the worst early games in the game. But once you get into the late game, she just doesn't die. You can literally stand inside of a mob and you won't die because her shield would be insanely big. Now, she doesn't scale with ability haste. Okay, she scales with movement speed, unfortunately. So, but once you build that movement speed up, by the time your shield decays, you get a new shield. So basically, you have a perma shield when you're in a huge mob, which is why Riven is super, super, super good. Okay. Also, like I said, she's good for gold farming too, because she gets around the map very quickly. Seraphine. Seraphine, I'm going to put in B tier. Seraphine reminds me a lot of like Aurora, right? She has the get out of jail free cards twice, but she just does more damage than Aurora, and you don't have to run into them to do damage, right? So the reason why I'm putting her in B tier is because her shield only shields nearby champions, right? And including yourself. So most of the time, if you're playing solo, and even if you're playing with a group, you guys are usually split around the map. So it's kind of more of like a selfish ability. You kind of use it just for yourself, right? To get out of those sticky situations. If I'm running and I see a mob that's in front of me and I can't go backwards, I just press my E and run through them. That's how I work Seraphine's E. I rarely use it to help my team. And I know that sounds really bad, but they're usually split around the map, so it doesn't really help unless we're in a trial. Her ult is really good as well. It's better than Aurora's ult in my opinion. It's very good in story mode, very, very good. But once you get into hard and extreme, you kind of notice the power decrease a little bit. You notice that she doesn't kill all the enemies instantly as well. So it feels very underwhelming in the harder difficulties, but for story mode, she's great. 2 get out of jail free cards, really great. Xayah. Xayah I'm gonna put in S tier. The reason why I'm putting Xayah in S tier because she's kind of like Illaoi, where you can just kind of AFK and keep pressing E because it's on such a short cooldown. You just level up pickup radius and ability haste, and you can literally just keep farming the orbs and the gold very, very easily. Right? I could literally stay in one spot and just keep pressing E with Xayah. So she's great. I think she's kind of like Jinx where she's squishy as well. But the thing about Xayah is she actually has a get out of jail free card, which Jinx doesn't have, right? I'll be honest, I've never pressed R on Xayah in story mode or on hard, but I have pressed R in extreme. Now, it's really good get out of jail free card. It doesn't do a lot of damage at all. It's just used for that utility. So her R isn't great. Like, it doesn't do damage, but you build damage on Xayah anyway, right? Xayah does the second most damage in the game, in my opinion. So Xayah is really good, really, really good. She has utility and damage, which is what you want. Now Yasuo. A lot of people say Yasuo is really good, and I can agree he's really good in one condition. So if you build the AoE style with Yasuo, right? You have the blades that go around you, you have the ice blast armor, you have the radiant field, you have all those things, the bunny crossbow. If you build the AoE style for Yasuo, he's insanely good. No one can touch you. Once you evolve your passive, no one can literally touch you. It's amazing. He does have 3 get out of jail free cards basically, right? Which is pretty good. I guess 4 including his ult. But I've only used his ult when I'm against one of those elites that shoot out the purple balls, basically. So I think his ult is very underwhelming in my opinion. If you just learn how to position and your movement is good, then you don't need his ult ever. So, if you build the AoE style, I think Yasuo's great. His early game is extremely bad, just like how Riven is, in my opinion. Really bad. But I think his early game is better than Riven. Now, a lot of people don't go the AoE route. They go the crit route. And if you go the crit route, I put him in A tier. So, I'm going to stick with this tier list. I'm going to stick with this one because I just don't like Yasuo compared to these 4 champions. And I'm going to do it in this order. So I think Briar is overall the strongest champion in Swarm. You can build her tanky and build damage. She's insanely good. Riven's good for farming gold, and you never die because of her shield. Zai's really good for farming and definitely doing the damage as well. And Jinx, most damage in the game. Extremely good. Everyone else is good to their own way. Yasuo's good if you go AoE. Leona is just a good tank. That's just about it. Not the best. I mean, I'd rather play Briar tanky than Leona. Seraphine's good. Great utility. But just not enough to get higher. Illaoi's not great, in my opinion, and Aurora just is the worst champion. I've only played Aurora when I had to do objectives or when I tried her for the very first time. I tried and I was like, this champion's not good. So she definitely needs a buff. So hopefully they keep Swarm around and they buff Aurora. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.